related to your subjects like anatomy, physiology, and biochemistry, neuroanatomy, embryology, cadaver diseases, pharmacology, and pathology and microbiology. You can visit them, and there's a lot of guide, and you can also buy books from them, and you can request them for the notes you want. And this is by the medical students, and I thank them that they have allowed me to make videos. Okay, so just here you can see like whatever chapter you want, like in physiology you get a lot of things. Okay, so this is all about. So hey friends, today we are going to revise our nervous system, and we will see the basics of our nervous system. So here you can see the nervous system is divided into two parts. There is the CNS and PNS. So what does how CNS is divided? CNS is further divided into brain and spinal cord, and PNS is further divided into autonomic nervous system and somatic nervous system. Okay, and here you can see that this one is ANS and this one is SNS. And ANS or autonomic nervous system is further divided into sympathetic and parasympathetic, and somatic controls our motor or skeletal muscles, skeletal system. Okay, skeletal systems. And brain is further divided into forebrain, midbrain, and hindbrain. Okay, and forebrain is further divided into, here you can see, forebrain is further divided into telencephalon and diencephalon. Okay, and telencephalon forms the cerebral cortex, basal ganglia, hippocampus, and amygdala, and diencephalon forms thalamus and hypothalamus. And our midbrain is divided into mesencephalon, which gives tectum and tegmentum, and hindbrain is having two parts, metencephalon and myelencephalon. Metencephalon forms pons and cerebellum, and myelencephalon forms the medulla. Okay, and you can learn the cranial nerves by this trick: U, ta, fag, wa, VAH. Okay, uta fagwa. O for olfactory, O for optic, O for oculomotor, T for trochlea, T for trigeminal, A for abducens, and you can learn that ABCD. So A and B comes first, and then comes the facial, and then this A is for auditory or vestibulocochlear. Okay, and G for glossopharyngeal, and that G for, and the G is for glossopharyngeal, V for vagus, and S for spinal accessory, and 12 is for hypoglossal. Okay, so now we will see classification of neurons. Based on their polarity, they are divided into unipolar and bipolar, multipolar. Okay, so unipolar are what? Based on their polarity, they are divided into this. Unipolar is single process arising from the body. Like this one is the body and a single process. Then this is unipolar. And seen in the pseudo-unipolar, like mesencephalic nucleus of fifth cranial nerve. Fifth cranial nerve is the example. Okay, and bipolar, one axon and one dendrite. Like this is cell body, and there is one axon and one dendrite. Okay, and the example is retina. Okay. And example of multipolar is our cerebral cortex cells, multiple process, one axon, like here, like these are dendrites, and this is our axon. You can see this is our axon and these are dendrites, and there is one cell process. Okay, so here is a unipolar example. Here you can see unipolar neuron, and then bipolar neuron having one axon and one dendrite, and multipolar neuron, many dendrites. Here you can see, and this is the axon, and this is the axon hillock from where these all things or the action potential starts or trigger happens. Okay, based on their lengths, they are of two types, like Golgi type 1 and Golgi type 2. Golgi type 1 is having long axons and connect remote regions, and Golgi type 2 is short and that end that 1 minute. Okay, often inhibitory in nature. Golgi type 2 is inhibitory in nature. Very rarely a neuron may not have a free axon. Amacrine neurons of retina. Okay, not having a free axon. These are some examples which are very important. You should learn all these examples. Like here you can see unipolar or pseudo-unipolar, posterior root ganglion of spinal nerves, sensory ganglion of cranial nerves. Bipolar is retina, sensory ganglion, and vestibular nerves, and multipolar, motor neuronal of anterior gray column of spinal cord and autonomic ganglion. And Golgi type 1 and Golgi type 2, Purkinje cells of cerebellum, and anterior horn cells of spinal cord, pyramidal cells of cerebral cortex. And Golgi type 2 are cerebral and cerebellar cortex. Okay, so these are examples of Golgi type 1 and type 2. Now for the nerve fiber basic structure, here you can see like there is axon, myelin sheath, endoneurium, fascicles, and perineurium and epineurium. Like epineurium, then comes the perineurium, and then comes the endoneurium. This one is the epineurium, this one is the perineurium, and this one is the endoneurium. Okay. And bundles of nerve fibers in CNS inside the 1 minute. Bundles of nerve fibers inside the CNS are called, here you can see inside the CNS nerve fibers is basically axon, and when it is seen inside the CNS it is called tracts, and inside the PNS it is peripheral nerves. Okay, nerves. Now axon cylinder, this represents, this is axolemma and myelin sheath by Schwann cells or oligodendrocytes. And one thing is that oligodendrocytes forms myelin sheath inside the CNS, and Schwann cells forms the myelin sheath in the PNS. Okay, in the PNS myelination is done by Schwann cells, and in oligodendrocyte it is by CNS. Okay. In PNS, neurolemma helps in regeneration of peripheral nerves. In CNS, such neurolemma is absent. In oligodendrocytes, hence regeneration in CNS is not possible. Regeneration not possible. Okay. There is a clinical correlation here. The epineurium contains fat that cushions nerve fibers. Loss of this fat in bedridden patients can lead to pressure on nerve fibers and paralysis. Blood vessels to a nerve through the connective tissue that surrounds it serves. Reduction in blood supply can lead to ischemic neuritis and pain. Classification of peripheral nerves fibers according to functions: efferent or motor. I am having a trick by which you can learn this. Okay, efferent or motor or afferent or sensory. I have made a mnemonic like EVM. You people already know that what is an EVM, and there is DAS, what I have made, DAS and EVM. Just learn this mnemonic and you will came to know what I am telling. Like from this is dorsal, afferent, sensory. Okay, dorsal, afferent, sensory, dorsal, afferent, sensory, DAS. Okay, and from that EVM, what you can learn is efferent, ventral, motor. Okay, ventral is also called anterior. Okay, so just this was the trick. And now efferent or motor, EVM, DAS. Okay, you can make your own mnemonic. Efferent or motor fibers carry impulses from spinal cord or brain to peripheral structure, from the spinal cord to the peripheral structure, and afferent or sensory fiber carry impulses from peripheral to the brain or spinal cord. Okay, like how I can make this for you. Like this is the cell body and this is the periphery. Okay, so then from periphery to the cell body anything comes, then this is called sensory, and when from cell body to the periphery something goes, then this is called what, your motor, and this is sensory. Okay, like see the head of the arrow where it goes, it is been going. Okay, according to area of innervation, they are somatic sensory, skin, bone, joints, and muscles to CNS. Somatic motor, CNS to skeletal muscle. And whenever motor comes, then you have to refer to skeletal muscles because there is a connection between all these things. And visceral sensory, visceral organs and blood vessels to CNS. Visceral motor, CNS to cardiac muscles, glands, smooth muscles. Okay, but this is visceral, so cardiac muscles and smooth muscles. And visceral sensory, visceral organs and blood vessels to CNS. According to diameter and velocity of conduction, they are of type A, type B, and type C. And this is a very important topic. Very important. According to diameter and velocity of conduction, they are of type A, B, C. Okay. Type A is the fastest. And here you can see 12 to 120 meter per second diameter is 2 mu to 20 mu, and subtypes are, and these are myelinated, so they should be fastest. Okay. Subtypes are A alpha, A beta, A gamma, and A delta. I have make a trick to learn how you can learn this. Like M, 1 minute. AC, HB, and PA film. Have you seen that movie? PA and AC. Okay. For hypoxia, B cells are used. For anesthesia or pressure A, and for anesthesia, C cells are used. Okay, C fibers, B fibers, and A fibers. Okay, for anesthesia, hypoxia, and pressure. Now just learn this. A alpha supply extrafugal fibers in skeletal muscles. A alpha supplies extrafugal fibers in skeletal muscles. A gamma supplies intrafugal fibers in skeletal muscle spindle. Intrafugal fibers are supplied by A gamma and A delta, both intra and extrafugal fibers. Okay, A alpha is for extrafusal fibers, A delta is for intrafusal fibers, and A gamma is for intrafusal, and A delta is for intra and extrafusal both. Type B fibers. Type B fiber, 3 to 15 meter per second diameter, is 1 to 5 micrometer and myelinated. They are either preganglionic, autonomic, efferent, or afferent from skin or viscera, free nerve endings in connection tissues of muscles. And type C is the slowest one. You can see here type C, 0.5 to 2 meter per second, and diameter is 0.2 to 1.5 micrometer, and they are unmyelinated, so slow. So here we can say that diameter is directly proportional to the speed. Okay, and myelination is directly proportional to speed. If speed increases or myelination is there, then speed also increases. Okay, and they are postganglionic autonomic fibers. They are postganglionic autonomic fibers. Okay, here you can see sensory for pain from thermoreceptors and from viscera. So in this table, what we see is 1 minute. Muscle spindles, annulospiral endings, Golgi tendon organ, and somatic motor. Diameter here decreasing. Okay, sorry. And velocity you can see also increasing, and from here it increases. Golgi tendon 1B. Golgi tendon. And muscle spindle, annulospiral endings 1A. Muscle spindle, flower spray ending, touch and pressure 2. Motor to muscle spindles, cold pain and temporary touch, pain, cold and touch, A delta. And motor to muscle spindle, A gamma, and A beta. Muscle spindle low, flower spring ending, touch and pressure, A alpha. Muscle spindle, annulospiral ending, Golgi tendon organ, somatic motor. Okay, and D are preganglionic autonomic, and C fibers are for pain, temperature, itch, tickle, postganglionic autonomic. So what I can say here is like diameter increase, myelination increase, then speed increases, therefore speed increases. Okay, myelinated and non-myelinated fibers. So here is the process. Axon line near a Schwann cell innervates into the cytoplasm of Schwann cells. In this process, the axons comes to be suspended by a fold of the cell membrane of Schwann cells. This is mesoaxon. These folds, this axon with deposited lipid sphingomyelin forms the myelin sheath. So the procedure is like this. Axon line near Schwann cells. Axon innervates Schwann cells. Mesoaxon formed by further innervated by the axon. Mesoaxon elongates and belongs to wing around the axon. Mesoaxons make several turns around the axon. Lipids are deposited between the layers of mesoaxon. The myelin sheath is the Schwann. A thin layer of Schwann cell cytoplasm persists as neurilemma. Schwann cell nucleus, neurilemma sheath, endoneurium, axon, myelin sheath, myelin, axon, node of Rohrbeer, endoneurium nucleus of Schwann cells, and neurilemma sheath. Nerve fibers are not fully myelinated at birth. Myelination is very rapid during the first year of life and becomes much slower thereafter. Protein, lipid, cholesterol, phospholipids, glycolipid, water. Functions: increases the velocity of nerve conduction or saltatory conduction, as myelinated fibers are having the property of saltatory conduction, fast conduction. Okay, reduces energy in process of conduction, responsible for color, white matter, brain, and spinal cord. Clinical correlation: myelination can be seriously impaired, and there can be abnormal collection of lipids in disorders of lipid metabolism. Various proteins have been identified in myelin sheaths, and abnormality in them can be the basis of some neuropathies. The composition and structure of myelin sheaths formed by oligodendrocytes, so differences from those formed by Schwann cells. The two are different in protein content and can be distinguished by immunocytochemical methods, as damage to neurons within the CNS is not followed by regeneration. Oligodendrocytes have no role to play in this respect. In multiple sclerosis, myelin formed by oligodendrocytes are not energy, but that derives from solitary central spark. So here you can see oligo degeneration. Myelin formed in the degeneration by the oligodendrocyte, but not from the Schwann cells. Schwann cells oligocytosis or the spark. Non-myelinated fibers. After molecular fluorescence continuity of the water, several such items may investigate into simple Schwann cell cytoplasm. So it's explanations of unmyelinated Schwann cells. Myelinogenesis. Process of sequential myelination along the fibers begins in outliners of inclined the line and before period of postnatal life. Sequence: first month of postnatal life, peripheral lobes. 6 months of postnatal life, sensory lobes. Second, third year, period of postnatal life. Therefore, your body formed to cerebral circuit for 5 movements in sensory thermic radiation for 6 months postnatal. Optic radiation by first year. So, loss of optic radiation determined radiation for second year 20 years. When the reticulous pathway for autonomic breathing starts functioning and has myelinated at birth, the entire myelination process is completely delayed in the second degree process. 24 cerebral cortical continues. The limit rate of single iris and senior component of non-memory. These are the cortex, the body personality, and the last area of information. Basic elements. Here you can see somatic effect. Some body line effect of growth curve, exercise to measure number to reach fibers, muscle fibers, motor integrate. Typically viewed in the distinction between affluent and efferent fiber, abnormal and somatic and visceral structure on the other, fibers in peripheral nerves can be divided into two more categories, and somatic effect, visceral effect, somatic affluent, visceral affluent. With the exception of somatic effect fibers, each of the categories is subdivided into general or special. Thus, there are totals here you can see
Seven functional components are as follows. Somatic different to somatic is A. Others may segregated methods of limbs and body weight. Somatic equal to somatic representation of segregated methods of limbs and body weight. They also supply influencing muscles of the eyelids and muscles of the elbows. The other methods are also a visceral motor fibers to supplies muscles of the legs. The gender somatic event
Here you can see like sensation of touch, pain, temperature from the skin, exteroceptive impulses, and proprioceptive impulses arising in muscle, joints, and tendons, conveying information regarding movements and positions of joint. The spatial somatic afferent root value is 8. Fibers carry impulses of vision, hearing, and equilibrium. Vision, hearing, and equilibrium. General visceral afferent, also called visceral sensory fibers, carry sensation pain from visceroceptive sensations. Okay, the spatial visceral afferent fibers carry the sensation of taste, having root value of 7, 9, and 10. A typical spatial nerve fibers carry fiber of 4 general categories. The spatial categories are present in cranial nerves only. Central process in dorsal nerve root, unipolar cell body in spinal ganglion, peripheral process in spinal nerves to skin, muscles, tendons, viscera, etc. Cell schematic diagram to show a motor unit consisting of a number of muscle fiber innervated by single motor neuron. General visceral efferent cell bodies of postganglionic neuron in lateral trochorum, axon emerging through ventral nerve root. Here, ganglion, cell bodies of postganglionic neurons in an autonomic ganglion, postganglionic fibers, and gland, and smooth muscle. Reflex is of two types. Reflex is of two types, monosynaptic and polysynaptic. 2 neurons, afferent and efferent. 3 neurons, afferent interneuron, and 1 is efferent neuron. Okay. Here you can see that there is an afferent pathway and efferent pathway and skin and muscle. But here you can see there is interneuron also, like this one, and afferent, efferent pathway, and then the message is conveyed all like that. 3 functions of interneuron to various muscles. Firstly, the axon arising from an interneuron may be divided into a number of branches and may synapse with a number of efferent neurons. As a result, an impulse coming along a single afferent neuron may result in an effector response by a large number of efferent neurons. Secondly, afferent impulses brought by a number of afferent neurons may converge on a single efferent neuron through the agency of interneurons. Some of these impulses tend to induce activity in the efferent neuron. These are facilitatory, while others tend to surpass activity. They are inhibitory. Thirdly, though interneurons and afferent neuron may establish contact with efferent neuron in the opposite. So here you can see like what is happening. Okay. Half of the spinal cord in a higher or lower segment of the cord. So what is neurobiotaxis? Neurobiotaxis. Origin. Neuro means nerve plus bio, life plus taxis, arrangement. Literally, a law governing the arrangement of neuronal cells, bodies, and their fibers during life. There are 3 components of this law. They are as follows. Neuronal cell body migrates towards the greatest density of stimuli. Neural cell bodies have tendency of centralization, encephalization, and telencephalization. Neuronal cell bodies with similar function groups themselves together, and other processes with similar functions come together in bundle. Neural stem cells, neural tissue with the central nervous system, till recently used to consider a post-mitotic, that is, neurons are incapable of regeneration. However, recent research has identified cells which are capable of forming new neurons, as well as glial cells in the subventricular zone of lateral ventricle and in hippocampal gyrus. These areas are known as adult neurogenic zone. These cells, which are called neural cells, are capable of self-renewal and so plasticity. They may help in neuronal regeneration within the brain when exposed to specific neurotropin factors, but this field is still under intense research. Disorders. Congenital anencephaly is underdeveloped brain and incomplete skull. Encephalocele, sac-like protrusion of the brain. Hydrocephalus, buildup of fluid deep inside brain. Spina bifida and myelocele, spinal cord fails to develop, and myelocele is spinal cord exposed without meninges or external skin. Traumatic. Cerebral contusion, mild traumatic brain injury. Cerebral contusion, scalp injury occurs under the site of impact with an object. Contra scalp injury occurs when a moving head hits a stationary object, causing CSF rushing to the area of impact during the injury, forcing the brain back onto the other side of the skull. Diffused brain damage, injury to spinal cord. Inflammation, meningitis and encephalomyelitis. Meningitis, inflammation of meninges. Encephalitis, inflammation of brain. Myelitis, inflammation of a spinal cord. Encephalomyelitis, inflammation of both brain and spinal cord. Neoplastic, space-occupying lesion. Neuroglioma, meningioma, secondary metastasis. Denervative, Huntington's chorea, demyelination of brain cells due to accumulation of dopamine and norepinephrine decreases, difficulty invoking, impaired speech, loss of sensation in arm and leg. Affects movements including tremors. Friedreich's ataxia, lack of order. Ataxia means lack of order. Parkinson's disease. Dopamine and norepinephrine decreases. Alzheimer's disease, subacute combined degeneration of the spinal cord, motor neuron disease, amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, multiple sclerosis. Immune system attacks the myelin and eats away, causing disruption in communication between brain and body. Epilepsy, nerve activity is disturbed, causing seizures. Migraine, cerebral palsy, congenital disorder of movement, muscle tone, and posture. Vascular or intracranial bleed, extradural hematoma, meningeal artery, subdural hematoma, dural venous sinus, subarachnoid hemorrhage, ruptured microaneurysm, intracerebral hemorrhage, thrombotic embolic syndromes. Functional schizophrenia, mood disorder, neurotic disorder, personality disorder, mental retardation disorder, or psychological development. Dopamine increases in schizophrenia affects ability to think, feel, and behave clearly. Peripheral nervous system, neuroglia, nerve roots and plexus disorders, mononeuropathies, polyneuropathies, myasthenia gravis, cora equina syndrome, disorders of autonomic nervous systems. Neuralgia, pain that travels along the length of nerve due to prolonged compression. Cora equina syndrome, CES, is due to damaging of cora equina, causing pain in lower back, numbness around the anus, and loss of bowel or bladder control. Sensory receptors. The peripheral endings of afferent nerve fibers make contact with receptors that respond to various kinds of sensory stimuli. Classification of sensory receptors. Exteroceptors, proprioceptors, interoceptors. Mode of stimulation. Mechanoreceptors, chemoreceptors, photoreceptors, thermoreceptors, osmoreceptors. Structural classification. Neuronal receptors, most exteroceptors, epithelial receptors, rods and cones, neuroepithelial receptors, olfactory mucosa. Markel's disc. And there is one thing that M for Markel's disc and M for Meissner's, they are superficial. Superficial they are. Okay. Meissner's corpuscle, Markel's disc, free nerve ending, Ruffini's ending, lamellated corpuscles, pulp corpuscles. Stereoceptive receptors, free nerve ending, pain, tactile components of Meissner's, touch, lamellated corpuscles of Pacini, pressure. So here you can see that Pacini, hence P for Pacini and P for pressure. Okay. Bulbous corpus of cold, Merkel's cell receptors, touch, Ruffini's ending, warmth, proprioceptors, receptive, Golgi tendon organ, muscle spindles, oligospiring endings, nuclear bag, nuclear channel, flower, spray endings. Muscle belly, extrafusal tendon fibers, neck, alphons with club shaped endings, intrafusal tendon fibers, junction of tendons and muscles, Golgi tendon organs. Thanks a lot, and this video is possible due to MedNotes. I thank them, and you can visit them on mednotes.in. Thanks a lot.